Our first guest on the show is the one and only Kevin Jackson. I've been following Kevin for many years, and I have to say, I would rank him as one of the top 10 cloud computing thought leaders on the planet. Kevin L. Jackson is a globally recognized cloud computing expert, thought leader, industry influencer, founder, and author of the award winning Cloud Musings blog. Kevin has also authored Architecting Cloud Computing Solutions, Practical Cloud Security, and Cloud Computing for the Business of Government. So, Kevin, welcome to the show. I've been meaning to reach out to you forever.
I'm so happy to be with you, Omid. Really, thank you for the invitation.
So, why don't you tell us a little bit about your background, and then we'll jump right to it.
Okay, sure. Happy to. I actually was in the U.S. military for about 15 years. I was a carrier pilot. I flew off aircraft carriers. I flew E-2Cs and C-2As, and I was a landing signal officer. You know,
Like
used to call
literally,
paddles
even
where you.
before you got into the cloud.
Yeah, I was in the cloud before I got into the cloud. And worked with the Navy Space Technology Program for quite a while. And when I was doing that, we were using global networks to create and develop and support Navy forces and Marine Corps forces afloat. So, I really got into leveraging communications, satellite communications, applications, and it really did well for me because when I left the military, I started working in technology, got deep into technology. Initially, working with NASA and with the space shuttle, doing payload processing, and the New Horizons spacecraft that went to Pluto. That was one of the things I worked on, and went to J.P. Morgan Chase, where I was the vice president of global technology. And that's really when I got into leveraging the internet, because one of the first jobs I had there was to develop a home banking application
Wow.
for the bank's high net worth customers. Um, at that time, this was 1999. To qualify for a home banking app, you had to have a minimum of $10 million into the bank. Because at that time you had to run a dedicated network to the person's house, and it was a big mainframe in the background, and just completely different. And compared, like today, everyone does home banking.
You could build the whole environment around just one.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, exactly. And that was Y2K. And I was actually joined IBM right after that transition. Started working with mobile wireless and voice technology, service-oriented architecture, and e-business. And that's really when I got into cloud computing, because all those technologies came together to really deliver the World Wide Web as it is today. And I got back into supporting the government and building the intelligence community cloud. And now I'm taking that knowledge, that experience, basically into the commercial world with GC GlobalNet, which is a company I started in 2013, basically built around leveraging cloud to deliver new and exciting business models. And that led to Source Connect, which now is actually reinventing the supply chain by leveraging cloud. So that's sort of how I got here.
Just been talking about this really weird times for everyone.
Yeah, yeah,
And all of a sudden, we don't have to pitch anything anymore. All of a sudden, everybody's trying to get into cloud for very specific reasons. I've been looking into a number of reports, and it's all about cost optimization. And we understand that, we appreciate that. People need to leverage cloud to reduce cost and to maintain business continuity. But
Hmm.
but we've always talked about this. It's not a sprint. It's a marathon. It's got to be a pathway in place, or you just dive right into something that you're not really ready for. Let's talk about that a little bit. I'd like to hear your thoughts on this.
Well, a cloud is not a fad. It's not a bandwagon. It's not something that is going to come and go. It is an essential component of any rational information technology strategy. It simply doesn't make sense for an organization to invest resources into a non-critical activity that can be accomplished in a more cost-effective manner through outsourcing. And I always like to say that, in early 2020, everyone was sitting comfortable developing their 5-year digital transformation plan because everyone would, felt that they'll be in the cloud in about, 4 or 5 years. So they had to plan their investments. And then, bam, everybody had to transition into this work at home environment. So to do that in a cost effective and efficient manner, cloud was there. Cloud computing is a form of IT outsourcing that should be used to access commodity IT services. And in reality, there were like three options for consuming IT services: either the traditional option of using your own data center, a managed service provider, or cloud service provider. And the choice needs to be driven by a company's risk tolerance, the core employee skill sets it needs to retain, and the available IT budget. And, in this year, everybody figured that out.
Yeah, I talk to CIOs, especially in the Middle East, and
Yeah.
a lot of these folks recently, in the past year or two, they've been having a lot of these vendors at their premises getting pitched, talking about different products. Now, all of a sudden, they look at their workloads. First thing they realize is, hey, I don't know my workloads well enough to know which one of these products to actually leverage. That's the first
Yes.
problem. Do you see that sort of phenomenon right now when you're talking to folks around you?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Because one of the biggest issues is a lack of, I guess, basic knowledge about what cloud computing is. It's um, it's a different operational model. It's a different economic model, and when it comes to security, that's one of the biggest areas because the number one security issue when it comes not just to cloud but any IT is data classification. But I'm not just talking about classifying the sensitivity of the data. There are at least 9 additional domains that should be used to classify just about every piece of data. And the CIOs haven't done so. So they don't know what data they need to keep in their data center. They don't know what security controls they need applied by the managed service provider or by the cloud service provider. And a lot of this goes into the IT governance of the organization. And with respect to, you know, classifying the data, you need to know things like how was the data collected? Who owns the data? Were there any contractual restrictions on the data or sovereign nation specific data protection laws? All of these must be addressed specifically in the classification of the data. Data sensitivity is just one of these real critical classification domains. So the failure to properly classify data is a central challenge to cloud security and to selecting, the appropriate cloud service provider or to consuming it from IT from the appropriate source, because it all comes down to governance. In a traditional data center approach or even a managed service provider approach, the organization retains control of all of the IT governance. But in cloud computing, they relinquish that control to the cloud service provider. So you need to understand that central difference between managed service providing in a data center and a cloud.
The other thing that I want to talk to you about is that, look, we were moving so fast into the multi-cloud world that it was
Mhm.
already sending up, shiver up our spine. And, um, and it was really scary for people. Now, all of
Yeah.
a sudden, they are faced with the possibility of having to be operating in very different cloud environments. Now, one of the questions I have, we as industry analysts, I mean, we look at the market and we see that everybody's pretty much collaborating with each other. I remember a time,
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure you remember that too. Like, I remember a time when you couldn't bring two executives from two of these big entities to a room to sit next to each other,
Right, right.
let alone collaborate. But we see now that everybody's, we're creating an ecosystem. Now the question is, Kevin, is this ecosystem ready for this pressure that it's about to experience?
Well, there's a couple of ways to look at this. From a technology point of view, the answer is yes. The technology is there, the capabilities are there. But from a cultural business process and really a cloud computing education point of view, the answer is a definite no. I mean, we were just talking about this global shift to working from home as an example. There are many, many cloud-based collaboration tools that are on the market. All of them are more or less immediately available for use by anyone that had a credit card, right? So from a technical point of view, the shift was relatively easy. But from a cultural point of view, we as humans found it difficult to make any major business decisions if all the key stakeholders weren't physically in the same room. And from a security process point of view, organizations hadn't properly classified their data, as we were talking before. So they didn't know what specific data security controls were needed when they were comparing these different collaboration services. They didn't know what data they had, so they didn't know what controls to evaluate, to put in place. And the core economic and operational differences between consuming IT services from the cloud and a traditional data center just wasn't appreciated. So it was the cultural business process and basic data security hygiene issues that made things difficult. We worked through them, but there were data breaches. Um, there were issues with respect to violating privacy of personal information. And so hopefully we have learned and will be better for this.
Absolutely. Which brings me to the next question, Kevin. Talking about data
Uh-huh.
security hygiene, right? Talking about having a security posture that can take care of an organization when they're moving towards the cloud and a hybrid cloud and a multi-cloud world. You are also a security expert. I know that. What is your number one advice for medium-sized organizations who are taking a lead, not because they want to, but because they
Right.
absolutely need to?
So not just for medium-sized and small, all organizations have to realize that the virtual world is real, okay? And all of the rules, laws, and processes that we need in the physical world also need to be applied to the virtual one. This is not an easy task, but it's necessary, okay? There will be huge ethical and moral challenges, but we must address these challenges as a global community. As we were talking earlier, this pandemic is the very first time, I believe, in human history that we have all experienced the same calamity. We have all, as a global society, uh, attempted to keep the society moving and running. We all, talk to each other about, the importance of social distancing and how to work properly from home. And we all experience this at the same time, and we all talked about it at the same time. And it wasn't government to government, it was person to person. Okay. So if you didn't believe in the importance of the virtual world and how it affects our physical world, this this experience really tells you. So no matter what size organization, remember that the laws that run your organization in the physical world will apply in the virtual world.
Absolutely. That's a great observation. We're going to have to wrap this up. Before we do that,
No.
question. So one question that everybody's asking us as a cloud community.
Mhm.
Now, I feel for a lot of other industries that are really under a lot of pressure, are struggling. Talk about travel industry or so many other industries that are
Yeah, I mean, the hospitality industry and travel industry has really taken the brunt of this global lockdown.
absolutely. But I mean, cloud is probably going to be even stronger in the future, even though
Yes.
more pressure is coming to us. The question is, what's next for cloud?
What's next for clouds? Well, um, as an industry, we really need to embrace our hybrid IT destiny. When I'm talking about hybrid IT, it's not just multi cloud, because organizations of any significant size will still continue to need their own data center. They will also need managed IT services and cloud computing. Success in this future environment requires what I like to call brutal standardization across all three of those environments and a very high degree of investment into automation within and across all of those IT service consumption options. So, as an industry, that should be the focus for us all. So, we need to collaborate and understand the different uh, business, economic, and operational models of those three different environments, those three different domains. We have to work together to ensure standardization and automation so that data can be manipulated and accessed and used in a secure manner within and across those domains. And as I said before, the rules, regulations, laws, data privacy, data protection, we need to work together to address things like cross-border data. and healthcare protection of data. And that's, as an industry, is really what we need to focus
Well said. I couldn't agree more. And I know you intended to use the word brutal,
on.
aggressive, not enforced, but brutal standardization across three different deployment models in different environments.
Yes.
Kevin, I can't get enough of this conversation, I have to say, but I'd like your word that, because we're going to have you back on the show, I'd like your word right here that you will be so gracious like you were this time and you will accept being a part of this again.
Yes, please, anytime. Let's do this in Dubai next time, man.
Oh, God.
I love Dubai.
What's not to love in Dubai? I mean, some of the folks out there, they want to get a hold of you. What's the best way of reaching out to you?
So Kevin Jackson, I'm on LinkedIn, and I'm also on Twitter. It's Kevin_Jackson. So and Facebook. So if you search Kevin L. Jackson Cloud Computing on the internet, I'll come up. Please reach out to me, and I'm happy. I'm passionate about IT and cloud and security, and so just reach out. I'm here.
One and only Kevin L. Jackson, folks out there. I mean, if you haven't come across his Twitter handle or his posts on LinkedIn, use social media a little bit more, guys. He's a top-notch influencer. Well done, Chief. Thanks very much for this talk, and we'll see you next time.